1 week after a horrendous flood devastated central Texas, more than 120 people are confirmed dead. The search for more than 160 people that are still missing continues. And finally, almost 1 week after the catastrophe, Trump signed a federal disaster declaration, allowing FEMA to send their own teams to support the ongoing local rescue and recovery efforts. So Trump took his own little time with stepping into actions. It took him at least 5 days to decide if the aftermath of the Texas disaster is worth spending government money on. But the question remains, why did the flooding have such a disastrous outcome? Of course, we can't do anything about the weather. If it rains, it rains. And sometimes a lot. But this is 2025, for Christ's sakes. So what are the reasons that there was no disaster preparedness, including efficient warning for the locals? But every time someone dares to ask a question, there are no answers, only a pile of BS.
Just hugging and comforting people matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other. God created us to take care of each other. And that when we do that, we are happier, we are more fulfilled, and we can walk alongside people on their worst day and help them get through it and come out the other side, knowing that we can continue to live a life that God has purpose for us. So they're grateful for you. Several times the day after the flooding.
And this one here is really a beauty.
A lot of helicopters. It was actually dangerous. A lot of helicopters up there. But they were real pros, and they were responsible for pulling out a lot of people. And we got them there fast. And Texas had some good ones too. But the response has been incredible. And the fact that we got along so well, I don't know. I don't even think that's a political thing. But we got along so well, and it was so unified. I think a lot of lives have been saved. That could have been as bad as it was, and you could have lost double or triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job, and I appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with.
And then, of course, there is Caroline Levitt.
The area to remain vigilant, listen to all warnings, and respond accordingly. Unfortunately, in the wake of this once-in-a-generation natural disaster, we have seen many falsehoods pushed by Democrats such as Senator Chuck Schumer and some members of the media. Blaming President Trump for these floods is a depraved lie, and it serves no purpose during this time of national mourning. Here are the facts. In the lead up to this tragic natural disaster, the National Weather Service did its job. Despite unprecedented rainfall, the National Weather Service executed timely and precise forecasts and warnings. On July 3rd, the National Weather Service office in Austin, San Antonio, Texas, conducted forecast briefings for emergency management in the morning and issued a flood watch in the early afternoon. Flash flood warnings were also issued on the night of July 3rd and in the early morning of July 4th, giving preliminary lead times of more than 3 hours before flash flooding conditions occurred. And the National Weather Service office in New Braunfels, which delivers forecasts for Austin, San Antonio, and the surrounding areas, had extra staff on duty during the storms, despite claims of the contrary. So to any person who has deliberately lied about these facts surrounding this catastrophic event, you should be deeply ashamed. At this time, the administration's focus will be giving the victims and their communities the support they deserve during these recovery efforts in this tragic time.
That it is possible that so much BS is dripping out of the mouth of pathetic liars like Trump, Noem, and Levitt, just to name a few, is astonishing. And what blows my mind is that the very same people that demand that the Trump administration can't be blamed for the catastrophic failures in preparedness right before the flood are the very same narcissists that blame Democrats for every problem and disaster that ever took place during the Gong Show that we call the Trump term. In example, Gavin Newsom, apparently responsible for the massive California wildfires in January. Even though the Trump administration does their best to water the fact. No pun intended, let's take a look at what we do know. People affected by the flood have clearly said that there was no advanced warning about the approaching danger. And everyone is aware that in the possibility of a natural disaster, such a flooding, the National Weather Service releases early warnings for the possibly affected areas. But no, not in this case. And why not? Well, I think this one here, this incredible news reported by CNN Wolf Blitzer, gives us perhaps some insights.
I know, Brian, there are some vacancies at the National Weather Service right now. What are you learning about that?
Well, according to our CNN reporting by our colleagues, Andrew Friedman, Emma Tucker, and Mary Gilbert, there are 2 offices of the National Weather Service in Texas that are closely involved in forecasting and warning about flooding on the Guadalupe River. Those are the Austin, San Antonio office of the National Weather Service and its office in San Angelo, Texas. They are missing some key staff members, but they still issued several watches and warnings about the flood danger. Tom Fahey, he is the legislative director for the National Weather Service's Employees Union. He told CNN that while he believes the offices had, quote, adequate staffing and resources, the Austin San Antonio office is missing what they call a warning coordination meteorologist. That's a role that serves as a crucial direct link between forecasters and emergency managers. We can also tell you that this morning, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said she is not aware of any breakdown in emergency warning systems that could have contributed to the high death toll. But Kerrville City Manager Dalton Rice says officials there are committed to doing what he calls a full review of events and the systems in place after so many questions have been raised about emergency notifications and evacuation guidance. Wolf, this has got to be a completely forensic review of this to figure out what may have broken down here.
Do you think that when the crucial links between forecasters and emergency managers are broken, it could delay an appropriate response? Well, let's take a look.
And we didn't even have a warning. We did not know.
You didn't know how severe?
No.
I'm so sorry for the loss of your friends.
We did not know. There was no... When I checked it about 8 o'clock that night, there's a chance of rain. But I did not see a flood warning. I did not receive a flood notification. I did not know.
So Mayor Joe Herring of Kerrville said he received no warning. Now, that could not have anything to do with what we just heard from Wolf Blitzer show, or could it? But wait, there's more. Here's what Jim Sciutto posted on X. Noem didn't authorize FEMA's deployment of urban search and rescue teams until Monday, more than 72 hours after the flooding began, multiple sources told CNN. Now, why would that be? For that, let's go to CNN's Caitlin Collins.
As that grueling search goes on and more stories like that are coming out, we're getting new reporting here tonight at CNN about the federal response. And CNN has learned that the response from FEMA was actually slowed by efforts to constrain federal spending. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, oversees FEMA, and she recently put in place a sweeping rule that every contract and grant over $100,000 requires her personal sign-off before any of those funds can be released. Officials at FEMA have told CNN that, in essence, that order has stripped the agency of much of its autonomy at the very moment that its help is needed the most. For example here, sources inside the agency are telling CNN that officials were ready to get urban search and rescue teams in position when the water was starting to rise on Friday. But a new rule that was put in place by the secretary required her personal sign-off first. That sign-off, multiple sources told CNN, didn't come until Monday, more than 72 hours after the flooding began.
Okay, so there you have it. FEMA has laid off staff for the communication lines between forecasters and emergency managers, leaving a vital gap in such communication. But it gets even more ridiculous. No federal effort to help anyone could get started without Noem approval. And she took her own sweet little time with that. 72 hours to be exact. But why all those hurdles? Why is there understaffing and every penny gets pinched? Could it be that the disaster administration, also known as the Trump administration, need money for other projects? Well, let's get the answer from someone who really knows, from Kristi Noem herself. Here's what she posted on X on July 1st. Alligator Alcatraz will be funded largely by FEMA's Shelter and Service Program, which the Biden administration used as a piggy bank to spend hundreds of millions of American taxpayer dollars to house illegal aliens, including at the Roosevelt Hotel that served as a trendy Aragua base of operations and was used to shelter Laken Riley's killer. So, there you have it, folks. A terrible disaster has been allowed to take place, killing over 120 people, as we know of, while 160 are still missing. And why? So that the disaster administration can deport so-called illegal immigrants, the very same people that ensure that you have food on your table. Oh yeah, and one last thought. I really wonder if Trump told Governor Greg Abbott on Friday night, when the water came, "Oh, don't you worry about it. It will all just suddenly disappear. You know, like a miracle, you know?" Sounds familiar, doesn't it?